talk about can any team knock off Manchester City to win the Premier League? And I'll tell you what, Manchester United are most definitely not that team to knock them off. I'll tell you that right now. Manchester United are most definitely not that team. But going back to the point that I was making, now Manchester City, they find themselves in which they have won the 5 out of the last 6 Premier Leagues, and they have won a whopping, a ridiculous, and they have won a ridiculous 4 Premier Leagues in a row, and they've won 6 out of the last 7 Premier Leagues. I repeat, 6 out of the last 7. That's unbelievable. Since the 2011-12 season, I add 2011-12 season. Yeah, in the 2011-12 season, they won, let's count it, 23-24, 1, 22-23, 21-22, 20-21, 18-19, 17-18, 13-14, and 11. They won 8 Premier Leagues in the last 11 campaigns. That's no 13. They won 8 Premier Leagues in the last 13 years. That's insane. It's almost getting to Bundesliga level, the dominance that they've had since these new owners came in with the ridiculous amount of money that they've been able to spend. Whether it's legal or illegal, they have not been charged with anything. So, ridiculous sort of success that this new ownership group has had. And for me, it's quite unbelievable that the Premier League has allowed this. And it's really sad because you don't want to look at the Premier League and talk about, you don't want to look at the Premier League and look at them as a Bundesliga, that's not what, that's really not what I'm trying to do right now. That's really not what I'm trying to watch. We're trying to watch, title, and the thing is too, some of the title races have gone down to the wire. Liverpool went down twice to the wire. Arsenal was able to bring it to the final game once, but this was past season, but you're watching it and you always know that City are just going to be able to get it over the line. And it's just so frustrating to watch. Can any team knock them off? Because you don't want to see this sort of level of dominance in the Premier League. The Premier League is a sort of league that you want to see one team win in 1 year, the other team wins in 1 year. And that's what they were for for a very long time. Especially in between the Sir Alex Ferguson United dominant team to this Manchester City team. You had Chelsea win it here and there. You had Chelsea win it here and there. You had City win it. This is in between the Pep Guardiola. I'm between the Pep Guardiola team and the Sir Alex Ferguson team. You had Chelsea win it. You had City win it. You had the Arsenal Invincibles. That was kind of in Sir Alex Ferguson time, but still, it wasn't as dominant as it is right now. 6 out of the last 7. That's not Premier League. That's not the Premier League. 6 out of the last 7 is not the Premier League. And we talk about this rivalry Liverpool and City has. One team has in this era has 6 Premier Leagues. The other team has 1. But that's not what we're here to discuss. We're not here to talk about the dominance of Manchester City. We're talking about if any team has a chance to knock off and win the Premier League this upcoming season. I'll say this. If Guardiola announces that he will be leaving Manchester City, forget about it. I think the only thing that can derail Manchester City, a team with this sort of quality, a team with this sort of depth, is a lack of motivation. And not saying this team will be not motivated, but game in, game out, in another 38-game season to win a Premier League, you've already won 6 times. It will be a little bit more difficult to get up for each training session and each, walk through in each meeting, and maybe those little slip up and little cracks of lack of concentration, lack of focus, maybe could get to them in crucial moments that could potentially cost them. But if Guardiola announces that he's staying, that he's leaving, that all goes away, because there's a narrative now of, we want to win this one for Guardiola, let's send him off on a high note. I think it gives him an unbelievable amount of extra motivation, not only to go on and win the Premier League as they have all the time, but to also win a potential second Champions League, and maybe even you do a second treble campaign, which is something that I don't believe there's been a set team. I know there's teams that have won multiple trebles before, but I don't know if there's a team, a dynasty, a period where they've won 2 trebles. I don't, maybe I'm mistaken. I don't think the Real Madrid team that won the 3-time Champions League, I don't think they won the treble multiple times. Did they even win the treble once? I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know. But wouldn't that be an unbelievable achievement for Pep Guardiola and Manchester City? It would be. For me, it would be an unbelievable achievement. So, yeah, I think there will be that extra motivation if he announces that he will be leaving. But just in general, can any team knock them off? Okay, well, let's just go through the teams. I mean, let's just go through the biggest contenders, which is Arsenal, and that's about it. I mean, I can't think much about Arsenal other than Arsenal. United, are they going to be able to take that next step all the way up there? Absolutely not. Tottenham, let's be realistic. Chelsea, can they take that step? I mean, maybe they have the quality, but this is a new manager coming in, and no, there's no chance that Chelsea can go take that step of winning the Premier League. Maybe they can, I think maybe they can get into the top 4, maybe be comfortable in there, but that's about it. Liverpool, I mean, with them having a new manager coming in, and you saw that there were slip-ups last season, and that they were in the title race for a little bit, but for a good amount of the season, but you can tell that they were hanging on by a thread, and now with Jurgen Klopp leaving, which I believe, I think Jurgen Klopp was a manager at Liverpool that really allowed them to punch above their weight, because they didn't spend the amount of money that a Manchester City spent, or even United or Chelsea, but they had that brilliant manager with a brilliant system, and that got the best out of the players that he had, and was able to maximize the potential of his players and really getting to play top football. Now, look, Arne Slot, he might be a good manager. I might not. I don't know, exactly how this is gonna work out. But to think that he can have a Jurgen Klopp-like impact at Liverpool is very irresponsible, because Jurgen Klopp, made Liverpool better than the sum of their parts, and he had them punching way above their weight. And the fact that Liverpool won the Champions League, with the amount of money that Liverpool spent under this Fenway ownership group, they should be nowhere near the likes of competing for a Champions League. They went to back-to-back Champions League final. They took the Premier League title race to the final day twice, and they ended up losing. They ended up winning one Premier League, and they could have easily had another 2, but it was just they're extremely unlucky. That's how dominant that they've been. That's how great that they've been. And I think with Arne Slot coming in, and this is a midfield that's still getting reworked right now, and and then you have an attacking 3 with Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez that didn't really have the best of Copa Americas. You find yourself in a little tricky point of trying to blend in Salah as well, with the fact that he's one of the more experienced players. I don't see them. Competing for the Premier League. I just think it's unfair expectation for Arne Slot too. This is a not a rebuilding team, but this is a team that's building something new and are currently in the process of that. So they're rebuilding, but they're not starting off from scratch. But with the new manager coming in, it is kind of starting from scratch. Then it leads us to the obvious, main contender based on what we've seen the past couple of years is Arsenal. And the Arsenal, disappointing what happened last season, losing the Premier League on the final day. But we knew for a while now that at least I knew for a while that they weren't going to win the Premier League. They were not going to they were not going to win the Premier League. It was just obvious. I mean, for me at least, I knew that they were going to slip up, and it came against Aston Villa, and I just, yeah. And Arsenal, they haven't done much so far in this transfer window. They permanently signed David Raya, and they brought in Lucas Nygaard to the youth team. But there's not been much done with, transfers. They still haven't sealed Calafiori, which I think will be a good signing for them. He's a guy that gives you flexibility. He can play center back. He also has good ability on the ball, so I can see him the way Ben White has been playing right back. He's gonna be able to provide that for Mikel Arteta. He's a guy with flexibility. He's very good on the ball. He's a solid defender, and that could be a good signing. And now with Duty and Timber coming, I think that defense, that back is set. I think they're very good defensively. But still, it's like fine margins when you're competing against Manchester City, and are they able to keep up with what Manchester City do game in and game out? Because it's unfair the way Arsenal found themselves in. But Arsenal, they drop a game here and there, and they're already on the back foot. That's just how dominant City is, and the City has so much experience in doing it. I don't know. I think it'll take a drop off from City. In fact, City had a drop off this season, in terms of how much they regularly tally in terms of points, and they still won the Premier League. So for me, I think maybe City does not have another drop off. And then it will take another ridiculous season for Arsenal. Look, Arsenal last season, they had enough points to win the title. They just happened to go against Manchester City. The only problem with Arsenal is they have to go against Manchester City again. That's the thing. I think there's certain times throughout the season that Declan Rice, when they've played Declan Rice alone in there as a 6, they can't progress the ball as well. I don't think Declan Rice is that. We saw it at the Euros. In terms of his ability to play the ball forward, not just drive with it and dribble in midfield. I think he's comfortable doing that, but his ability to pick out a pass going forward, I think there's times that they have suffered because of that, and that's nitpicking too, honestly. That is nitpicking as well. But I'll say this. I think in that Aston Villa game, I think that's what really, that's where they really struggled in Declan Rice, playing that lone role in front of the two center halves, being the main guy to progress the ball. Yeah. Kai Havertz too, he's kind of up and down. He was down earlier in the season and they got off to a slower start. I think if he has another if he has dip in form, I think that is also could be concerning. And Leandro Trossard, he had to come in and save them in a few opportunities. I don't see how Arsenal get over the line. I really don't. Manchester City are just too good.